The Aldus podcast is brought to you by Aldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
Hello everybody, it's Mark Kelly, Chief Customer Officer and co-founder of Alldus. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world today. I'd like to welcome you to the Aldus ServiceNow podcast series. Today we're excited to have Gregg Aldana. Gregg is ServiceNow Global Area Vice President of Creative Workflows, Specialist Solution Consulting, and he is our distinguished guest today. And we're going to engage with Gregg on the forefront of ServiceNow's low-code creative workflows app engine, highlighting his role in strategic growth and go-to-market strategies. And you're going to expect to gain insights on fostering synergies across sales, marketing, development, and understand how Gregg is steering the low-code app engine development platform business to new heights. So you're going to tune in for an enlightened discussion on the innovation and leadership. And genuinely, I think we could have probably 10 episodes with Gregg on the podcast because there's so much to delve into. So Gregg, thank you very much for joining us on the show today, firstly.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. It's my pleasure to be here. And like you said, I think this is, I get to talk with you for a half hour about my favorite topic in the world. So this is great.
Brilliant. So Gregg, firstly, just tell me a brief overview about your role. I know
Sure.
I kind of talked about it there, but if you might just go into a little bit more detail,
Sure.
that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, well, I work for ServiceNow and I've been here for the better part of 7 years. I lead ServiceNow's pre-sale solution consulting team for an area of the company called Creator Workflows. And that really is ServiceNow's portfolio of low-code application development tools, called App Engine, all of our automation and integration tools around, our integration hub to connect with systems with APIs, our RPA technologies for robotic process automation, all of our document intels, and now what everybody's interested in, all of our generative AI text to code, text to flow, text to app technologies. And so really what pre-sales and what solution consulting is, it is really the technical consultative arm of sales. We're a software company. When you go out and you sell software and, we have companies with long-term contracts, they want to get into technically, how will this work? What is it capable of? How should I architect this? So we get to go out and have those very deep business and architectural conversations with our customers, our most strategic customers. Before, during, and after the sale. I laugh, Mark, because the term pre-sales is like, well, we're supposed to come in before the sale. Well, in this day and age with subscription-based, cloud-based software, where does the pre and the post-sale stop? The post-sales is really just the pre-sales for the renewal or the upsell. And so it's a nonstop job, but it is fun because we really get to partner and collaborate with our customers in this. It's not like us telling them what to do. I learn as much from my customers as they learn from me. So it's a dream job. I love it here. So
you know what, that's a great point, because the cheese is always moving and everybody is a teacher. The kind of teacher student thing is kind of thing of the past, right? This is kind of a separate area, because there's just so much information, there's so much data, and the things are changing so quickly that it's very, very hard to keep up.
It really is. And, I do a lot of traveling for the company, I'm in this kind of global role. In fact, I'm going to Tokyo this weekend. I probably meet with about 200 to 250 CIOs and CTOs and different business leaders a year in different industries and in different countries and different cultures. And that's really critical. To learn what are the trends, what's going on in different industries and different markets. Where can you kind of share best practices from one area of the world and one industry with another? And I get to take all of this information back and I share it with our investment team, with our product team. I have a meeting this afternoon, our quarterly product review, where I'm going to share a lot of that insight. By staying in touch with customers and really talking with them on a weekly basis, you stay very close to what's going on in the industry and the market and where trends are emerging very quickly. And one of my early mentors taught me that, Mark, was, none of this ivory tower leadership where you sit behind a desk or you sit behind a Zoom or a Teams meeting, get out there. And that is kind of my credo. Like, you've got to be talking with 3 or 4 customers every single week, or you're not doing your job. So
Yeah. Greg, how is hyperautomation driving transformation in those different industries you're experiencing?
hyperautomation is really, it's an interesting concept because, I think, every few years Gardner comes up with a new term for digital transformation. This is the new term. But I think it is very appropriate for what's going on here right now, with the term hyper, because the pace has steadily, since COVID was introduced and people were remote working, digital transformation, the pace has increased. And now with the introduction of generative AI, we just got into to hyper mode. So I think that's very apropos. But we really kind of view hyper automation like there's really basically 4 pillars to it. It is, digitizing things that are manual. And so digitizing processes, whether you're using low code tools to create custom things or you're using prepackaged solutions. And then it's really about automation. And then within the digitization, automating all of these tasks that you have to perform in order to get work done. And whether you're using chatbots and you're using virtual agents and you're using all kinds of different RPA technologies to automate tasks. Then there's the intelligence piece. And if you almost kind of picture this cycle going from the digitization to the automation, now to underlying intelligence, generative AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, to take those digitized and automated processes and use intelligence to make them even more effective, perform even optimally. And then finally, you have to start the cycle over again with process mining tools and process optimization and looking for different ways. Now that the data is digitized and it's automated and it's intelligent, now we have to look for ways to improve it and constantly look for new areas of optimization and new areas of digitization. Because hyperautomation is a cycle. It is a journey. It is not a destination. You never get to check done. And I think where ServiceNow really uniquely fits into the space is that we provide solutions in all of those areas. So what I see happening in different industries, and I'll take public sector for interest, and I'll start there, government. I used to work for the government, and this is an area where there is so much manual work being done historically, papers and all kinds of physical mailing and even I would put email as manual work, and it's still primarily used as a major workflow tool. So I was on stage at our knowledge conference in Las Vegas, our global conference a few months ago, talking with the USDA about their hyperautomation journey and about a process, a compliance examination process. And that's the Department of Agriculture, so USDA if you're outside of the United States. And a compliance examination of examining farms and the underwriting of it that used to take 6 weeks, like for 30 or 40 years, it took 6 weeks. And with hyperautomation, they took it down to 30 minutes. And you've got to think about the impact of that. So it's not just taking manual processes and digitizing. That's a big part of it. It's eliminating, non-value added tasks. It's connecting people and systems that were never connected before. It's updating legacy technologies, mainframes to low code and cloud based. But you have to look at the impact of not just cost savings and time savings, but cultural differences now. And this is where I really try to guide people in hyperautomation. It's not just a technical problem or a technical issue. Like there's a million, we solve the technology challenge. There's enough technology out there to meet all your needs. You have to worry about the cultural aspects and think about how that's going to change the life of those employees. They can now do more work in a week than they used to be able to do in a year.
Which
You
is
can't underestimate the impact of that.
which is incredible, right? When people
Yeah.
hear those examples, they're thinking how, because they're so used to doing things in a certain way.
Yeah.
So, is there any particular, and I love the way we've gone into industries, but is there any
Yeah.
particular kind of administrative duties that are particularly good to automate for that kind of hyper automation?
Yes.
And then building on that question, if we go back to the industries, is there any other particular industries that you're seeing as, particularly primed to take to that next level?
Yes. Yes and yes. So I mean there are definitely very typical processes that lend themselves very well to automation and hyper automation. And if you think about what's at the core of the majority of work, and I put that in quotes, that people do inside of companies across all industries, retail, manufacturing, financial services, telecom. How often in a work environment I need someone to look at this and review this and approve it and give me your input? Well, that sounds like a series of tasks. And it kind of sounds like a workflow because it usually has to go in a certain order. I need this person to take a look at it, give me your input. Then I need this person to take a look at it and give me your input. And usually, what do people do in business to do that? They email you a document, take a look at it, email it back. I'll make the changes, email it back, email it back, email it back. It's like a ping pong ball. In the olden days and in some federal agencies and in some governments, they still physically, walk it around. That is perfect for a workflow, for a digitized workflow, to kind of set up a digital version where something gets automatically routed and you can see the status of that workflow at any time, and you can see who you can set up, where it's got to go, the order, the time. You can put in an SLA very easily. Hey, I need this back by it can automatically be automated. And using a lot of technology like process optimization or process mining, you can start to examine that workflow of asking for people to review and approve stuff and saying, this person approves it 95% of the time. We're going to start skipping them and just send them the exceptions. Like, you can start to optimize that work. So every department inside of every company, finance, logistics, IT, HR, marketing, has an endless series of requests, approvals, and tasks that need to be routed around to people. Endless. I could give you thousands of examples of different areas, but that's primarily that request and approval and tasking. Every department has dozens and dozens and dozens of tasks that need to be automated very well.
We think about that from the customer experience, because we've
Yeah.
got the internal customer experience improving.
Yep.
And then we have the external customer experience improving, because everyone's expectations have now increased. I always
Yes.
reference Netflix as it works everywhere, all the time, consistently. You might have a challenge on what you watch on any given day. However,
Yeah.
you know it works. And there's a variety of different examples like that. What are now the expectations for internal customers and external customers, and how is ServiceNow helping with that?
Well, it's a great question, and it's actually something that I spend a lot of time talking about to different audiences and businesses. Expectations are off the charts. People now, for a long time in the 80s and the 90s, the technology you encountered at work was far more advanced than what you had in your personal life. You went to work and you got to work with the most advanced technologies and tools. You could be way more effective. Then in the 2000s, post.com and introduction of iPhone and mobile, it switched. The cutting edge technology and experiences you started popping up in your consumer life, and you came to work and you're like, I'm back in the dinosaur age. What is this? And so the expectations have flipped now. And with the aging workforce, like, I look at my 17-year-old daughter, like, she's going to come into the workforce. Her whole life has been digital. Everything in her school, in her consumer life, the Netflix, the Ubers. She doesn't even ask to borrow the car because she can use Uber now. She's got an Uber account. The expectations are off the charts. People are coming into the workforce expecting that everything is digital. Everything. They're like, wait, in my personal life it is, at school and academia it is. Why shouldn't it be at this Fortune 500 company that makes billions of dollars? What is going on here? And so you saw this with the great reshuffle and the great reorganization and the great resignation of people leaving companies where the experiences and the digitizations weren't that great. My daughter's not going to understand coming to a company and being handed a piece of paper and having to send an email to an inbox and wait for a response. She's building low code apps in high school. And so where ServiceNow comes in is the expectations for great experiences like Uber and Amazon are at a paramount now. But when I meet with CIOs and CTOs, that's one of the first things they always say, Greg, I'm trying to create the Uber and the Amazon for not only my customers, but for my employees. And I always kind of laugh at that, Mark, because I dig into it. I hear it twice a week from every digital officer and CIO. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Some pretty colors on a page, a nice fancy modern UI. Because the last time I looked at Amazon was actually a pretty dated interface. It looked like something built in the 90s. But what makes Amazon a great experience is the simplicity. 2 clicks, packages at my door. Uber, 2 clicks, cars at my door. But under those 2 clicks, Marks, there's shipping systems, fulfillment systems, finance systems, inventory systems, tracking systems. As a consumer, you're not exposed to any of that complexity. You're abstracted from it. But you come to work and you're exposed to all of that complexity. I often joke with CIOs, if Amazon.com was the typical enterprise experience, probably take you about 6, 7 weeks to place an order, because you'd have to log into all of those systems individually. First, you'd have to request access. God knows how long that would take you. And then you would have to log into the inventory system, the shipping system. You'd have to contact all those different departments on your own. The onus is put on you as the end user to connect all of that. And that's what ServiceNow provides right here to help with those experiences. There's not a lot of software out there in the ecosystem that allows you to provide not only the great UI, but then the underlying workflow and integrations to connect all those systems as a seamless workflow. So that's what ServiceNow is really bringing to the table that's different than Microsoft or Salesforce or the others. We're bringing these Uber and Amazon connected experiences internally to the enterprise.
And from the customer perspective, they don't really care about those complexities about the fulfillment, the shipment, the customer service, the support. For them, they just want their item, for example, shipped to them in a one-click basket, which adds so much value to them. So from a metrics perspective,
Yeah.
or return on investment, and we're trying to go on that journey from that CIO, CEO's perspective, how do you start to quantify some of these things?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, just to your last point really quickly, customers do expect to not have to deal with the complexity. And think about all of the bad experiences you've had with companies. It's usually you contact customer service. Oh, you got to contact a different department, Mark. You're like, why should I have to do that? Why can't you just do that for me? So people are using ServiceNow for their external customer service to do those connected experiences and those self-service experiences as well. But to speak about the return on investment, because it's a very important aspect to this. And ServiceNow takes a very unique approach to this. You have to proactively manage your automation and track it and monitoring it and set those KPIs up front. And so if you're going to automate something with a low-code app, or you're an integration or an RPA bot or a chat bot or ChatGPT or whatever it is, you have to define up front what your benchmark is. And some people do that by time. Some people calculate, well, the time is worth this many dollars. So here's my coefficient for every, for every minute saved or every time this routine is done, I save $30 or I save $50. And so ServiceNow allows you to monitor how often you're doing these things so you can in real time, not a quarterly report, not I've got to go and hire a data scientist to figure out how much time we saved. You need to build that into your automation up front so you can see where you're getting an investment on. And very often, what I will advise customers on, you can automate things so quickly today, it might only take you a few hours. You have to monitor it. And if you only need it for a few months, like the COVID apps, great. You have to monitor it so that you could retire it. So I see people measuring the impact and the cost savings in terms of time savings, dollar savings from retiring legacy licenses. I don't need as much software anymore. Better sales because my customers have to spend less time getting self-service. Workforce productivity is probably the biggest thing. If I could describe in one sentence what ServiceNow does, it makes the workforce more productive. I mean, I think one of our former CEOs once said, oh, I get it. Salesforce is for sales, ServiceNow is for work. We actually take and make your workforce more productive. Think about that USDA example I gave you, 6 weeks to 30 minutes. Think about how much more productive that employee is. They're not doing all of these non-value added administrative fluff tasks. They're concentrating now on value added tasks that only a human being can do. So I would say that that's probably the biggest thing, workforce productivity. And now in this environment, that's critical.
So if we take into kind of ethical considerations, because with the automation, one of the biggest concerns within AI that we hear regularly is my current role, how it's going to change,
Yep.
how, is there a matter of years or months before my role will be actually done away with?
Yeah.
How do you take it out from the ethical perspective or kind of, make people feel more peace of mind?
I've been hearing this ever since I was a child. And I think, I'm a student of history. If you go back to the Industrial Revolution, like, oh, we're going to all be automated out of jobs. you're not going to be automated out of a job ever. What's going to happen is your job is going to change, and what you're capable of achieving at work is going to change. I get this all the time, especially in government. Greg, are you here to automate me out of a job? Because I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've got a pension coming. Like, I can't lose my job. I'm like, no, your job is going to change. And we do take those ethicals. It's technology in service to people, not people in service to technology. And so take, for instance, an HR department I was working with. And I said, so now that we have automated with intelligence the way that you can actually do, and we can do a lot of self-service. You don't have to email people with the 401k forms and the direct deposit forms. They can just go into a portal now and they can pull it down self-service and automated. Now you have the time. You're not doing that anymore. Your job isn't eliminated. Now you have the time to use artificial intelligence to mine through data and look for trends. Hey, how many of these employee complaints lead to lawsuits or lead to people quitting? Now I want to come up with an employee retention program to help, take care of these things proactively. You didn't have time to do that, and you didn't have the tools or the intelligence to do that before. Now you do. It's almost like, Steve Jobs said many, many years ago, I love this quote of his, is that like they did a study where they measured the land speed or the speed of the fastest animals on Earth. And then they ranked them just using their natural abilities. And I think human beings were like 14. The condor was, I think, number 1. But then they added into the study, let's see a human being using a bicycle. And then it became the fastest, animal on Earth just using a bicycle. It was amplifying their capabilities. It didn't stop their capabilities. It took their capabilities to that next level. It made them way more faster and productive. And that's how you have to look at artificial intelligence and machine learning. As a lifelong developer, I'm not scared that developers aren't going to be needed anymore because of text to code. What a developer can build now, you can build a sophisticated system in hours that used to take you months and years. You're that much more productive. Instead of building one app in a year, hey, maybe I can build 100 apps in a week. Like your role and what you're going to be able to accomplish is changing, and it is really evolving. And I think to speak to some of the ethical concerns around the privacy, I think we're taking a we're taking a stand in this area that ServiceNow is not really using external large language learning models. We're using internal domain-specific models that we've developed based on our data, and you can be protected on your own instance where your data is not shared with anybody. So I think especially a lot of governments and a lot of regulated industries are like, hey, I can't throw my data into OpenAI and have it out there in the sea of things. I would caution some of those customers, well, do you have employees using Google search? Because that's being captured too. But anyway, we've developed models, and we will only ship functionality around generative AI that uses an internal large language learning model where you don't have to share data with external sources, which is very unique.
You've been listening to Gregg Aldana at the helm. Hyperautomation is set to revolutionize industry practices, and the future is now because it is helping to streamline administrative tasks and enrich customer experiences. ServiceNow's applications demonstrate the vast potential of this technology, improving workflow across sectors, and organizations are aiming to leverage such innovations using guidance from leaders such as Gregg to establish clear milestones and navigate the ethical landscape thoughtfully. Monitoring key performance indicators remains crucial to this, and we will be evolving as we go along. Gregg, thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much, Mark. My pleasure. Take care now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.